I am the co-founder, the founder, not the co-founder, the founder of Where's Eve. And just a little background on me. I am by no means no professional in any area except for my own, which is nothing to do with what Where's Eve is trying to offer, right? But I am a
Correct.
woman. So I figured why not start bringing all these pieces together and give out some of my past experience and then bring in professionals to talk about those past experience and put in their input. So this is where I bring you in. So you may want to
Awesome.
introduce yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you to everybody that's tuning in, that's catching this live stream. This is going to be a very informative topic because essentially, we go through as women our moon cycles, and we have questions, especially when we're young and we don't know what we're doing, and so we're going by the graces of our the women before us, like our grandmothers, our mothers, our aunts. And so I wanted to bring clarification to a lot of questions. So essentially, my background is I was in the healthcare industry for about 16 years. I became a radiation therapist in 2008. I practiced radiation therapy for about 8 years. And in that course, I was in clinical health. I was treating patients with radiation. So I saw the whole ailments from breast cancer to uterine cancer to ovarian cancers to prostate cancers in the guys. And that definitely opened the door as far as what are some other alternative methods that can be utilized with regards to treating certain cases, especially reproductive um, system cancers. So while I was working as a radiation therapist, I studied plant medicine on my own. And I did that ever since it was on and off since I was 13 years old, believe it or not. I've always been inquisitive about health and how it relates to plants and how it relates to our bodies. And so I've always had an inclination to look into it and study it some more. And then when I became an adult and I started to put it into practice, then I started to see like how beneficial our bodies responds to plants and how it heals our bodies and how it does all the magic that's necessary for it to regenerate. And that was the most powerful thing ever. So when I was working in radiation, unfortunately, I saw a lot of the opposition of
Mm.
introducing plants and how that relates to radiation. And so as a result, I had to make an ethical decision and decide that I needed to be on my own and I needed to share the education with regards to how holistic wellness can be very beneficial if we work with nature rather than against it. And so in 2008, I became a radiation therapist. I did that again for 8 years. I left it and decided to teach radiation therapy to kind of segue away from the career. But it still landed me back in talking about radiation. And I just got tired of it. And I was just like, something's got to give. And one day, I came across a job listing for to become an office manager and a business partner with a holistic physician. And she essentially took me under her wing, and we pretty much I've learned everything about the health, the herbal modalities as it relates to treating the human body. And she knew everything inside and out. And by the grace of God, she was just there. And I essentially took advantage of that opportunity to teach myself, to reteach everything that essentially I've learned through books. And then from there, I was meditating one day and I said, I was just like, Creator, like, show me what is it that I need to do in order to get something started, because I'm so passionate about holistic remedies and how it relates to the human body. What avenue am I needed to serve my purpose? So I started meditating, and then I started to see all these flashes of Love Box Brew and what that means to me. And my literally like my mission statement just came up out of nowhere. And I was just like, I'm geared. I'm like ready to get this started. And
Hmm.
I was like literally at work. I was just sitting down. I was writing on a piece of paper, like, what's my mission statement, what it's going to be about. And then from there, Love Box Brew just popped up in my head, the name of it. And
Interesting.
I remember calling my my cousin, she does all the branding and stuff like that, and for businesses. And I was just like, dude, like Christine, we need to like, I need to get this down on paper. I need like some type of image that relates to this dream that I have, because it's just crazy. And she was very helpful in gearing me in that direction as far as the artistic value of what that is. And from there, then I started to develop products as it relates to one of the main cornerstone products that I feature are
Mm-hmm.
Yoni steam packages,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially just an herbal mixture that you use for steam infusion to bring balance to the uterus with the help of the steams. And it goes up the vaginal canal and it cleanses the entire uterus as well as the entire womb as well. And it delivers properties from each plant and their essential properties as it relates, and it brings healing to it. So each herb has its own designated essence.
Right.
And it's all dried, it's all organic. I strictly wanted to keep it that way because I wanted to be as close to nature as much as possible with no deviations. So it doesn't have any chemicals, no preservatives, none of that.
Right.
And then from there, I started to include more products on there that would be very helpful in the grand scheme of things, such as like crystals and other tools like incense,
Mm-hmm.
sage, just to build the experience of self-care, because that's going to be very pivotal. As women, we typically um, we go about our day-to-day day, and it's, we're caregivers. So of course, we lose sight essentially of taking care of ourselves, and that's going to be very important. That's the cornerstone of living
Right.
a full life. You have to take
Yeah.
care of yourself first in order to best serve others. And that's essentially what I hit on. It's probably one of the standards that I share a lot, and I talk about openly, because that essentially needs to be brought back. And from there, I have loveboxbrew.com, and that gave way to the Instagram account as well as the Facebook account. And right now, I'm in the process of starting a YouTube channel where I'll feature guided meditations to help women tap into their feminine essence, and also talk about other facts and health related stuff that may be in the news, that may be trending to look out for as it relates to reproductive health.
Well, that's why I brought you on, because, you have a lot of background on how to treat the body naturally, right? And
Mm-hmm.
with some of the experiences that I had, I realized that that has always been the best case scenario. Although,
Mm-hmm.
there are situations where you do need to get the assistance of a professional doctor, right?
Correct.
So I
Yes.
want to talk about um, there's a couple of topics that I want to talk about
Okay.
that we don't really like to it's almost, I wouldn't say taboo, but it's something like you're embarrassed to kind of say, hey dude, I got that, I got this, right? But
Right. Yeah.
the reality is that a lot of these things, they just occur. They occur because of
Yeah.
the change of the body and stuff. So the topics that I want to cover is bacterial vaginosis, right?
Yes.
I, I
Mm-hmm.
will I will tell you that the first time I've ever heard that, I was just like, what the fudge is that? Like, what are
Yeah.
you talking? They were like talking in acronyms, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. How did I get that? Who gave me that? And like my brain started thinking, and I'm like, who gave me that? Nobody gave me that. Like, I was nowhere. And
Yeah.
then
Right.
yeast infection. And uh, in terms of hormonal changes, because
Mm-hmm.
I sit back, I'm 45. Let's just say that. I'm 45. I'm not going to lie about my age, but within
Yeah.
the my lifespan from the beginning of menstruation till now, I sit back and I take a look at, the different stages of my life, how my body has changed, not in a physical way, but internally, and it
Right.
affected the way my skin, my hair, my menstrual cycle, everything, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I started to really pay attention, I want to say like 6 years ago. I was forced to, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a little background, so then we can start the conversation and then go into what your knowledge is behind it.
Sure.
So I had, because of work, I had to go away to Texas, which I hate Texas now. It's only because of the stuff that happened, right? So, essentially, the 2 times that I've gone and come back, like I was fine there, but when I returned with BV, and then I got yeast. And I will say I had yeast. I have gotten yeast before, but I think I got yeast during a pregnancy, and I totally don't know how that even occurred. But that was like the most horrific thing that could have ever happened to me.
I'm sure.
And then I went bacterial vaginosis, yeast infection, and then back to bacterial vaginosis, and then a UTI. I'm like, what? Like, what the hell is happening? And the only thing that I can say that was visible during the time that I was there was the fact that my skin got very dry. My hair was just like breaking in pieces, like in between everywhere. Like I literally had to like dose myself with lotions and creams and like do all this crazy stuff, and I had to stop using hairspray, and I had to really pay attention to how much water I was taking and what type of foods I was eating, because my whole body was changing and I just didn't know what the hell was happening. So when I got back and I started realizing that there was like something not right, I will tell you, I'm the first one to tell you, I smell. Nobody else is going to smell it, but you will smell it. BV has a distinct odor, besides the fact that you have like these different discharges, right?
Correct.
And so when I even went to my gynecologist, she was like, I would have smelled it. I'm like, right here. I was like, I smell it. I swear to you, I smell it. She goes, that's so strange because I have a nose. I say, well, I got a nose because I smell it. She goes, okay, we're going to test you for it. Lo and behold, I had BV, right? And I will tell you the most common misconception is that, oh, you must have stuck something up there, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the times that I've had those things, there was nothing going through there. Zero. Except when I was pregnant, that was all I had was the pregnancy, which was funny because, at that time I was married, and it's not like you can't have sex while you're pregnant, but I wasn't having it. I was constantly sick. So that was not occurring. But I really had bad yeast infection. And I feel that when you try to treat it with things over the counter, because you think that you just self-diagnose yourself and you think that you're that you got the right answers, you'll go to the pharmacy, so then you don't have to go and waste your time at the doctor's office and get embarrassed. You reach out for the monostat, but guess what? The monostat can actually exacerbate that, and make it worse. And your cooch just goes on fire. Right. I ain't gonna lie. It's like someone just lit a fire in your cooch, and you're just like spread eagle in the bed trying to figure this shit out.
It's like burn acid, almost.
Let me tell you that there was, and I'm gonna plug in Tiffany Haddish for this. She made a comedy show not too long ago, and she was talking about a yeast infection or BV or whatever it was, and she was like dumb and young. That's what she called it, dumb and young. And something was going up in her cooch, and her friend told her, put some mayo on it. And I was just like, what? Put mayo on it? She goes, that shit lit on fire. I was completely dead. And I could understand what she was talking about. And I'm thinking to myself, like, have you seen what yeast looks like? It's almost like mayo. Yeah. Ew. Like, how are you? yeah, and I'm like, how you gonna mix the two? That's like bacteria with bacteria and bacteria. I'm like,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
So, can
Yeah.
you give us some background on the
Sure.
misconception and of bacterial vaginosis and
Okay.
yeast infection, and
Okay.
how pH balance plays a role in it, how diet plays a role in it, and even the just the environment that you're in.
Yes. Okay. So first, let's talk about the microbiome that happens in our body. So we have good bacteria and we have bad bacteria, right? And the biggest places where you'll find them are in very dark and moist places. The biggest one is in your colon, right? Because we got to process all that food that we ate, and the intestines is absorbing those nutrients from the food that you're eating. So, what it's doing is it's taking those bacterias and it's usually staying aligned in your intestines to be able to flush out what your body needs to pull the nutrients and then release it. Then you
That
got
sounds gross.
the vaginal space. Yeah, you have the vaginal space, and it also has its own bacterial colony that protects you from such infections, protects you from other things, and it also has antibodies as well. So when that gets disrupted, what winds up happening, it throws your pH balance off.
Hmm.
And when your pH balance is off, it makes you more susceptible to infections of bacteria, including, and this is outside the viral scope of things, but since we're talking about yeast infections, keeping it to
Right.
that basis. So, yeast infections is essentially just an overgrowth of the candida, which is a form of bacteria, and the candida grows out of control. And so now when it does that, it throws your pH balance off. And this can be caused by a lot of things. One of them includes stress. It
Yes.
includes your hormones, your given hormones at that specific cycle. It could be uh, and by stress I mean work related. It is also could be related to the foods that you're eating. So it's a whole combination of a lot of variables as it relates to why you're experiencing that. And the biggest misconception that I see is the conversation of, well, maybe you might be out here having sex with Tom, Dick, and Harry,
Right.
or your
Right.
boyfriend's cheating on you. And
Right.
the problem with that is very toxic, because what that's doing is ingraining a false reality of what your body is experiencing. And so if you're not aware, to assume that would be very detrimental. And it's funny because I remember writing a post some months back about that, because someone spread a meme that said that if you have a yeast infection, that's the first
Right.
clue that somebody's cheating in a relationship. And I said,
And
and thousands of people liked the post and was
that's
totally
not
agreeing with
true.
the post. And I was just like, it's not.
It's
And
not. It's not
so
completely
it's one of
true.
those,
It's not completely true. But let's
it's
be
not
honest.
completely true. Not at
It's
all.
it right.
Yeah,
Yes. It can be a factor, right? Because what happens
possibly.
is if the other person does have already a yeast
Right,
infection, they pass
right.
the yeast infection to your partner and therefore
Correct.
passes it on to you, right? Because you sometimes your partner
Correct.
doesn't even realize. But that's
Right.
just one factor.
But yeah, but to lead the conversation in that is very situational,
Yes.
because again, everybody goes through the motions in life and through their
Yes.
experiences and stuff like that. But it's also very detrimental, because
Yes.
if you are, like, say, if you're in a very sound relationship and nothing is clearly going on, it could be
Yeah.
just your body's going through
Yes.
changes, and we're
Absolutely.
human. So, and as women, we're very complex with regards to our womb health and how that relates to our menstrual cycle and how that relates to our age and how that relates to our hormones. So the yeast infection, essentially coming back to that specific question, is this is caused by an overgrowth known as candida, which is a
Yep.
form of bacteria. And so the best way to essentially treat the yeast infection, of course, is to see your physician so that they can
Yes.
determine by culture samples that what you're experiencing is in fact a fungal infection
Mm-hmm.
as it relates to Candida and not anything else. And
Right.
then from there, sometimes if depending on the severity, now it could be very basic. It could be a very basic fungal infection. They'll prescribe an antibiotic to treat to pretty much treat the actual condition until your pH balance comes back to normal.
Yeah.
There are
Can
proactive
we,
things that you can do.
can I pause you for a
What's that?
second? You did
Sure.
mention antibiotics. Now, that's
Correct.
another key factor, right? Sometimes we get
Yes.
sick with other things and we
Correct.
require antibiotics. Um, I have been known to get yeast infection because I am taking an antibiotic, right? So
Correct.
that's
There's a reason why.
another, right? There's another factor into that. So again, you have to know your body. I can't stress this
Correct.
enough, where I feel that some people ignore their body because they think that it's just a body, right? But it's not just a body.
Right.
It's your temple. It's you. It's what helps you get to and from. It's more than just an equipment, you know? You have
Yes.
to get to, it's
Yes.
like for those that like vehicles, right? You got
Yeah.
to know your vehicle. You got to know the
Yes.
tune of a sound good car, right? If you get a new
Absolutely.
car, you know how it sounds when it's new. But when something breaks, you have to know the sound of it too. It's the same
Yep.
concept. You got to know when your
Absolutely. You're totally
body says
correct.
to you, hey, ding, 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 there's something going on, right? You can't
Yeah.
just ignore it. I know
Absolutely.
that we're constantly busy and we're going through life very quickly, but you have to pay attention. So go ahead, keep
Correct.
going.
Yes. No, that's a great, and it's a great point because yes, we're cyclic, meaning that we're going through different changes at any given time. So you want to be mindful of where you're standing at and how that relates to your body, so that you can
Mm-hmm.
prevent these certain things from happening. So when it comes to the whole fungal infection, there are things that you can do proactively to help you. You can take herbal supplements. One of them is called chaseberry, which is like the quintessential um, herbal supplement that you can pick up, and it usually comes in a dry form as a powder, or to take it as a regular pill supplement.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does, it helps to keep the balance and the restoration of your womb as it relates to your pH. So it's very powerful, it's very effective. You could drink it as a tea. That could be very helpful to bring that rejuvenated state where you're bringing balance back into your pH, back into your vaginal canal as it relates to your entire system. So that's one way. Another thing too is to be mindful of how you're treating the external area after you're
Yes.
dealing with vaginal infections, because like you mentioned before, your crotch gonna feel like you're on fire and stuff like that, and that's normal because your pH is so acidic, so it's now
Yes.
secreting. It's secreting outside, and it touches your skin, who's very
Yes.
sensitive already. So one remedy that I do recommend is apple cider vinegar. After you shower, take apple cider vinegar, some warm water, put like a warm towel over it, and air
Yes.
out. Literally, just have your legs open in bed with the fan like coming
Yeah.
down, and air it out. Let it dry. What
Yeah.
that does is the apple cider vinegar helps to balance it because it's already alkalized. So
Yes.
you're already acidic. You're now releasing. So of course, let it purge naturally. Shower and bathe, of course. Apply the apple cider vinegar, mix it with warm water to dilute it just a little bit, and then just pat yourself and let yourself dry. You want to be able to wear cotton panties as well. No nylons, no polyesters, none of that. The reason
Mm-mm.
behind that is to keep it clean, keep the surface clean and away from any type of dyes or fibers that can essentially disrupt your process of healing.
Yes. I also recommend
at night not wearing any underwears at all.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if, I mean,
That
and
actually
for
helps to
me,
sleep.
yeah, and sometimes, I'm, let's just be honest, I don't wear underwear unless I have to go to work.
It's all
And I
good.
don't
No
know,
judgment here.
and right, and I think that kind of helps too. I've always kept
It
like a
does.
small bottle of vinegar in my shower for just in case emergency.
Yeah.
I feel a little funky, because sometimes it starts on the outside, right? Um,
Yeah, it does.
and ever since I started waxing, I found it to
Yeah.
be a lot more cleaner and healthier. And that's another thing that I
Okay,
want to
great.
talk about, because I think that
Yeah.
as young girls, when we get our first period, we have all this pubic hair, and we're sitting in our own pool of blood when we give our young girls a maxi pad and we expect them to
Mm-hmm.
keep clean. It's difficult. I went through the process, and if I didn't have like a
Yeah.
bunch of wet wipes and all this stuff, like I felt like every time I had to change a pad, I had to like shower my area, you know. And I
Yeah.
feel that if we stop stereotyping and start teaching
Yeah.
hygiene at an early age, it would be so much better for us in the long run, right? So I feel
Right.
that if I would have had a girl, I would have been telling her, hey, look, I'm not going to get you to get waxed, but you should sit in there and maybe trim some of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
To
absolutely.
keep it
Absolutely.
to keep it tamed and more and easier to clean, especially when you are peeing, pooping, and having menstrual cycles. It's important
Absolutely.
because it's difficult when you have like a whole bush up in there. Let's just
Yes.
be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't walk
Absolutely. I
around
mean,
with a
yeah.
bidet.
Right. Yeah, we really need to essentially think about maintenance and how that relates to our health too, and prevention as well. That definitely does play a major role. But I wanted to come back to that because I'm glad you brought that up. So bacterial vaginosis is essentially, they're kind of like one and the same. The only difference between bacterial vaginosis is the type of bacteria.
Hmm.
So I talked about how yeast infections is an overgrowth of candida. Bacterial vaginosis is any of the other bacteria that are overgrown outside of candida. So with this one, is essentially you're approaching it the same way. The only difference is the way how it presents. So the most common one is the fishy discharge, or that
Hmm.
fishy odor.
Yep.
So that's probably one of the biggest keystone symptoms as it relates to bacterial vaginosis, and also there might be some itching as well, and
Yep.
that's essentially because of the elevated pH that's going on.
Yes.
And so they're very much similar. The only difference is a matter of, again, the bacterial colony and which one that's affected. So the best way to know whether if this is a bacterial vaginosis, again, is to see your physician, gynecologist, have them do a culture to see what exactly it is.
Right.
And then from there, they'll usually prescribe a very strong antibiotic to essentially stop the colony from overproducing and go
Hmm.
from there. Um, you mentioned before about the antibiotics actually can disturb the pH, and it does. Unfortunately, it's one of those catch-22s because it has to kill
Yes.
off the excess germs. Unfortunately,
Yep.
my recommendation is to be very rigid with regards to making sure you're taking a high quality probiotic to counterbalance that.
Yes.
A lot of people, they're told to take a probiotic when you're taking an antibiotic. There's a reason behind that. And that's because you want to make sure that every time this antibiotic kills off these colonies, you want to replace them with the good guys.
Yes.
And so I recommend one that was recommended to me from a naturopathic physician who's the one I worked with. And she essentially thought this was the best one over the counter as far as where you can get it at your vitamin shop or your GNCs. And it's a brand called the P8. and it's a looks like a regular generic type of bottle, but it's essentially the most effective probiotic, in my opinion, that has all the strains that are needed to restore the bacterial colony, especially in your intestines, especially in your vaginal canal as well. We see a lot of probiotics on the market that are geared towards women.
Mm-hmm.
And that's marketing purposes, just to be honest. It's for
Yeah.
marketing purposes. It doesn't mean that it's any more effective. So I personally use P8.
P8.
And if
Okay.
I am, yeah, P8. I'm very stringent with regards to keeping a routine down that's going to be effective. Because when you make your body susceptible to these elevated pHs and their circumstances, it makes you susceptible to developing other infections. So yeah, so definitely be mindful of that. If you're given an antibiotic, please do follow up a routine. I recommend personally taking the probiotic with a shot of aloe vera
Oh,
juice
I've never tried that.
in the
I
morning.
always thought that aloe,
Tastes like nothing.
really,
It tastes
because
like nothing.
I've,
Yeah.
when you've done the aloe face mask, like the fresh aloe face mask,
Oh,
that
like the
aloe
gel and
taste is a
stuff.
little,
Yeah,
no, it's
no,
like the
this one is
real
different.
aloe plant.
Yeah, this one is this brand. I would have to find the name. I can't. I want to say it's Dr. Thomas, if I'm not mistaken, or Thomas something.
Okay.
But essentially, it's a water. It's like it literally looks like water, and you take a shot of it. And this was recommended from the physician. And you take that in the morning with your probiotic on an empty stomach. And what that does, it helps to stabilize after waking up your intestines.
Okay.
And it helps to clear, it helps to cleanse, and it helps to nourish too. Because when you're waking up, you don't want to overwhelm yourself with a lot of food when you're getting up in the morning, because your
Right.
body is now getting up. It's recycling a lot of stuff from the day before. So you don't want to jolt your body with anything heavy like food or anything like that. You want to supply it with nutrients. And the best way to
Right.
do that is to replace the good bacteria that you may
Yeah.
have lost throughout the process. So
It,
why not give that a shot?
yeah. I think that,
Go ahead.
when you go through this process of bacterial vaginosis, and then you're incorporating antibiotic, it does take a toll on your body completely,
Yeah.
and you need to really pay attention, because the 2 times that I've had bacterial vaginosis, I went from BV to yeast infection to back to BV to back to yeast infection. It was just like, what the hell? I've tried everything.
Yeah.
I did a lot of
Yeah.
clean eating, and making sure that I was doing yogurts and prebiotic, but maybe it wasn't the right one. And
Yeah.
what I found is that one day I just ended up going to a Korean spa, and they had a yoni, right? They had several of them.
Yeah.
And I figured, you know what? My system needs something else that's more holistic than what I've been given, because it just kept going back and forth, right? So
Correct.
what I did was I went in, and I was sitting there for hours. Well, not necessarily for hours, but it just felt like for hours, because you see the yoni system, and a lot of places are selling it like a vaginal facial, and I
Yeah.
hate that. I really hate that, because
Yeah.
it's not like, yeah, you know what? I look at my vajayjay because I need to know what it looks like, and I need to know if something's growing out of it, like a horn or something. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
I think that a lot of
Yeah.
females need to know and get and become aware as to what their body looks like. Don't be afraid to look down there, because it's important
Absolutely.
that you know every part of your body. And
Yes.
when I went in there, they give you they have the like the little stool, but they have a pot boiling underneath. It's not like you
Yes.
pour hot water and it just sits there. It's a boiling pot with all these herbs and mushrooms and stuff. And then they sit you
Yeah.
with like a body tent, right? So I'm
Yes.
like steaming my whole entire body. And I will say
Yeah.
to you that towards the end of it, you know how you get your first period and it kind of just drops hard? I
Yes.
felt that drop internal. So it was just like my internal uterus just cleaned out whatever it was that was sitting in there, and it just came out. After that, I didn't have any issues. So I do say that sometimes you have to go a different route. All these
Yes.
medications was throwing me out of balance, and it didn't matter what I
Yeah.
did. You know, my pH was off, my body was off, and it just needed a break. And that's what I gave it. So you
Well,
have to
thank you
pay
for,
attention.
yes, thank you for sharing that. That further solidifies the importance of steaming because let me tell you, the impressions that I usually get from people, they're very either intrigued or they're just kind of like turned off because they just don't know like what, they think it's some form of quackery, but
Right.
this been around since ancient times. This been adopted by major groups, especially in the red tent, uh, especially women who
What
supported
is
each
the
other
red
like a
tent?
community. So the red tent is essentially, um, I don't want to say it's a whole ideology, but it is a community that started way back in ancient times where women would come together and they would support each other through the times of their rites of passage. And this includes going through their menstrual cycle. This includes childbirth, all the way up until the ripe old age into the wisdom. And what it did, it formed a community where women would honor each other and our graces as we go through our cycles. And they would use traditional practices to restore the health of the body, as well as not just from the physical standpoint but from the spiritual essence of it. So and there's so many books and references that can be easily obtained online, that talks about it. And for me, I feel like that would be beneficial for humanity, especially women in general, to go back to that traditional sense of reconnecting with our body and having this less attachment to the Western philosophy of going to a doctor to get prescribed with something that's just not going to help you in the long term.
Right.
Um, we need herbs. We need these practices to be able to have a sustainable life because again, we're very complex. And so steaming on a routine basis helps to bring back that balance in a system that is going through so many changes at any given time. We go through hormonal changes.
Yes.
We definitely need regulations as far as where our hormones are at. And so one of the biggest things that I highly suggest is for every woman to see a functional medicine physician to address any hormonal issues as it relates to the body, and to see a gynecologist to be able to do these determinations, these tests, and to best give you the support that you need so that you can go forward and take care of your body in that essence. And
Now that
so,
you go ahead, finish.
yes,
And I want to chime in when you said it's
sure.
important to see a gynecologist and get all these tests. I'll go over some of my experience and what I did to that.
Okay, excellent. So one of the things that I highly recommend is to have your hormones checked out via a blood panel, like a blood work, just to see where your body is at, because your pituitary gland could be essentially creating more estrogen than your body really needs.
Yes.
And maybe that's essentially why you are facing issues such as infections on a routine basis that are not under control. But you wouldn't know that unless you saw an actual physician to be able to gear the conversation in that direction. And so that's why I feel it's very important still, to still see these types of professionals to be able to gear you in that direction, so you know what avenues you can take and what holistic practices you can now start adopting into your life. But the biggest thing for me is having a routine steaming every 2 weeks, 3 days before your period if you're on your period, or 3 days after your period, and up until your well advanced years. And even if you had a hysterectomy as well, you still can benefit from a steam, because it's bringing the essence back into your womb, even if it's not there, but also it's supporting the circulation in your pelvic basin, because it has to go somewhere. Yes, it travels down into your legs and it comes right back up. But if you're not essentially fostering a sense of normalcy within your pelvic basin, you can suffer from stagnancy in your hips. You can suffer from infections. You can suffer from diseases that may pop up later in life. Whereas if you just take the essence of doing your prevention practices, this can also include yoga as well. This can also include elevating your legs up at night too, at a 45-degree angle, and allowing the blood to rush back into your basin or your pelvis, so that you can circulate and keep the fluids, especially the lymph fluids, keep that going as well. That's going to be very helpful in the long-term stretch of things. But you could go ahead and ask your question.
So when you mention gynecologists and professionals to get all your blood work done and see where you stand, when I got back from these trainings and stuff in Texas, I decided that I needed to see not just a gynecologist, but I went to see a specialist gynecologist, which was an endocrinologist gynecologist. And I think it's important for a lot of women to really, and there's not many. That's the hardest thing. There's not many. And I think that it's so important for the women community to push forward and request more endocrinologists, gynecologists, because it's important through our states. We go through different stages of our lives and nobody's really paying attention. Really paying attention. And so what occurred during my visits was that, one, I found out that I was possibly premenopausal, because I had an IUD in. It was my second IUD. I pulled it out, and I still was not getting my period, which was odd. But at the same token, I was kind of happy that I wasn't getting my period during the time that I had my IUD. That was one of the symptoms that you may or may not have your period. So every time they put one in, I would have my period for like 3-4 months, and then it would go away, and then every once in a while I would spot during the same time. And then, I knew it was fine. I thought I was fine. Right. And so that's what I'm trying to get at. After doing so much research, for premenopausal and what the symptoms are and what may cause it, nothing causes it. It's just your body's time clock, right? Your body's biological time clock. And what happens is that it is rare, but it does happen where women at an early stage become premenopausal.
Correct.
And
it's
what
possible.
That means is, it's possible. And what that means is that we are all born, if let's just say this, and be very specific. If you are a woman that wants to have children, right? I think it is very important to learn or figure out how many eggs have you produced, right?
Yes.
Early.
Yes.
And I think that we're failing every woman that starts menstruating. Because what happens is the moment you start menstruating, you start releasing your eggs. Your eggs goes to the dump.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You don't know that.
Absolutely.
You think, oh, I become a woman. I have my period. I'm good. I should be able to have kids. No, sister.
No.
You may have your period even way past your time, but you may have 0 eggs.
Yeah.
You may have
Yeah.
5,
And
you know?
that's the craziest thing about it too. Like
It
the
is.
lack of awareness and knowledge in that
And it's
alone.
not even lack of awareness. I think that women are failing other women. And it's like what you said, that there's a that red, would you say the red,
The red
what'd you
tent.
call it? Right, the red
Yeah.
tent. I think
Yeah.
that we as women need to start helping one another and bringing awareness to one
Correct.
another. I'm
Absolutely.
not trying, this conversation is not about, religion or, um, being vulgar or of any kind. This is awareness of women parts and what happens to women.
Right.
And I want to start early. I want to let mothers know, young girls know, hey,
Absolutely.
if you have in your mindset that you want to have kids in the future, maybe you should start
Yeah.
having that conversation with the doctor earlier, not later in
Correct.
life. And even
Yes.
though the child gets her period at 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever the case may be, I think it's important that we take our children to a specialist to get them having that conversation and getting to
Correct.
know their
Yes.
body thoroughly, because that conversation should be happening in the home. It should not be happening at the school where they teach them, the birds and the bees, and it's just like a quick
Yeah.
run. Hey, you get your period. Here's your tampon. Here's your Kotex, and you may get
Yep.
pregnant if you have early sex. That's basically like their basic conversation, right? This conversation
Yeah.
should go a little further, and we should not be
Yes.
embarrassed about it. You know.
Yes. Oh my
And so
God.
when I went to this gynecologist, this endocrinologist gynecologist, she really put me on a couple of things, and I was just like blown away. I left a little bit, sad and upset, because I'm thinking like, shit, this is fucking early, like what the hell? But
Right.
I had
Yeah.
I had to relearn my body and start from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say start from scratch, I had to start taking away, like I said, I took that IUD out. I needed to start fresh. What is my body? Who is my body? Without all these things that we have, added to the body, because maybe we don't want to have kids at the moment, or whatever the case may be, right? And I came across the yoni. I did the yoni, and it helped me a lot. Then I started realizing that my body was actually changing, and I was getting dry, like dry skin, dry hair, nails, and I was just like, what the hell is happening, And she incorporated hormones, that helped my body, which I appreciated it. And then they moved me on to birth control pills at a lighter scale, because, your body starts losing hormones and estrogen and all the basic stuff, right? And so she reintroduced those things to my body. And then I was put on to a supplement that helped with dryness, vaginal dryness.
Yes.
It's I want to say it's herbal in a sense, but it's something that I've been using, and I can tell you it actually works, and it helps, because I didn't realize. I was just like, that's not going to happen to me. Yeah, I did. It got dry, and I was just like, I peed, and it feels like I'm wiping scratch paper on my butt, right? And so I ordered this supplement, and I'm going to plug it in. And later on, once we wrap this up, I will add all the other things that you have mentioned, so that people can go back and maybe look them up. But I use a supplement called Bonafide, and it was recommended by my gynecologist. And they have several different supplements, and it's all for women. It's not a medication. It's like taking like vitamin A, vitamin D, whatever the case may be. So I just add it to my daily routine. And here's the bottle, if you can see it.
Okay.
And so I'll plug it in. But I think
Yeah.
it's important to talk about those things with other women, because it shouldn't be taboo. It should be something that we're helping one another, letting each other know that, hey, it's okay. It's going to be
Right.
okay. You know,
Yeah.
the changes are coming. You can be 30 and not be able to have children and then go through premenopausal at 30, you know? So
Yeah.
it's important
Yeah.
to start helping one another and telling each other, hey, you know what? These are the things that could potentially happen, but these are the things that you can possibly do to make yourself aware.
Correct. Yes. I totally agree with you. I was very fortunate. My mom did the best she did as far as her knowledge and what she'd experienced and stuff like that. So she's been the pivotal person as far as helping me to understand how to deal with, being in this body as a woman.
Well, you
And
got
so,
lucky, girl.
yeah, I totally agree with you. And I know it's unfortunate because I know I've essentially helped a lot of women who didn't have that bridge with their mother, and they were dealing with a lot of issues at home, and I get it, and I understand, especially if you don't have that support system. And again, it really truly goes back to having those conversations very young. Before she even experiences her menstrual cycle, get her acclimated to such conversations like this. And yeah, it's going to be difficult, and yeah, there's going to be questions. So even more so, you want to open the floor, introduce the appropriate designated people who can gear the conversation, that so that in the event if something were to happen, how do you process those changes as well, and how to
Girl,
navigate, especially with hormones.
I think my mom missed the boat. I think her calendar was off. I got my period at someone's house and I was like, what? Like, I thought I peed
Yeah.
on myself. I went to the bathroom
No.
and I was just like, what the fuck is this shit? You know, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, what's happening? You know, and I'm thinking to
Yeah.
myself, did you not know I was going to get this? You know?
Yeah.
And I remember
Right.
my aunt one time when I saw her changing her pad, I said,
Yeah.
oh my God, you're bleeding. Are you okay? You know?
Right.
And
Right.
instead of her telling me and explaining to me what's really happening, she said she cut herself. I was just like, oh, you got a Band-Aid? I remember that
Yeah. It's
conversation. It was just ridiculous. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, if you would have said something earlier, maybe, just maybe, I would have gotten the
yeah.
heads up. And I would have been
Exactly.
prepared, you know? I'm like out in the street and
Right.
I gotta wait for my mom to come and get me, you know, hours later, and I gotta wrap fucking toilet paper and get myself acclimated with toilet paper.
Right. You see, and that goes to show you, like, especially in cultural speaking, how many of these things happen, especially in the community, that we're not even aware of, and it's
Yeah.
just like, just
Why are we
throw it
ashamed of
underneath the.
having that conversation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I just, for the life of me, I don't understand. I just don't. How do you go about your life at that age dealing with something? Because that's traumatic, and depending
Girl, I was
on
in a
the
house
person
and
themselves.
there was no female my age. It was another boy my age, and I was just like, I can't have
You
this
see?
conversation with him. It's just like, what?
Yeah, it's not ideal, and it's just like,
No, it
no,
was
it's,
shock
yeah, it's
value.
just,
I was just like, I can't move. I'm gonna sit right
yeah.
here.
If you've been enjoying this video so far, give me a like. And if you enjoy more of these videos as it relates to your womb health, consider subscribing to the channel at Lovebox Brew. Exactly, and stuff like that is scary. I would imagine, for the average girl that's out there, that's going through these changes and don't have that support system that's there to help her navigate with these different physical changes that can just happen at any given moment.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what it is. It happens when the body's ready. So,
yeah, and I also think that there's a negative connotation behind premenopausal. And I think that
yes.
when a female is going through premenopausal stages, you shouldn't be the first one to be like, oh, it's not a big deal. or, oh, you're getting old, you're going to start getting like all these
Yeah.
other, whatever it is that they've gone through, you know? And I'm like thinking like, there should be some sort of support system here where it's going to be like, it's okay,
Absolutely.
you know, it's okay. Because
Yeah.
for me, it was traumatic. I was just like, what's happening?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, am I losing myself?
Absolutely.
You know, and if I felt like I was losing myself, how many other women don't feel the same way? Where they thinking like, oh shit, like what just happened? Do I
Yeah.
start deteriorating? Do I start cracking? You know?
Yeah.
And I
So,
think that that's the misconception, and we should be more supportive instead of being more judgmental,
yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
and shaming
Yeah.
because we shame, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's a sensitive type of thing, and we should have more compassion. I totally agree with that.
yeah,
Um, Especially with stuff like this. Yeah, because we have to open the dialogue. This also invites generational healing across the board, which I'm a big speaker on that, especially with my brand. Um, Being able to foster a new culture where, you know, women can talk about this with their daughters and not feel like um, they have to exclude anything just because they're uncomfortable to express that. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Totally
I
agree.
think we shouldn't. I don't think that we should be body shaming, you know, ourselves, because if we have
Mm-hmm.
daughters, once we start body shaming ourselves, we forget that we'll start body shaming our daughters by not talking
Yeah.
about the things that we are going through and what we've
Correct.
learned in the process. You know,
Yeah.
I think all the things that you go through, that you learn, and if you have a daughter or someone that you're mentoring, you should be
Mm-hmm.
sharing that piece of information, because it's
Correct.
all about supporting one another as as a woman, as a full complete woman, because
Yes.
everything that happens to us
Yeah.
from the beginning stages to the end, you know, should be
Yes.
talked about. You know, it shouldn't be
Absolutely.
like something that you just randomly have to go search on Google to find out what happens. You should have someone in your corner already talking to you about it, you know?
Yes.
And
Totally agree.
it should not be something that you should be ashamed of,
Yeah.
you know?
Definitely.
But let's
Definitely.
talk about the yoni that you have, because, you know, I did
Yes.
mention the yoni at this spa, which, you know, with COVID we can't get to no spa, which is like not good for me.
Gotta make it work. Yeah, we gotta make it work. We gotta
Now,
make it work.
I've seen your herbs, which I have
Mm-hmm.
yet to purchase because I do want to purchase it. But it's like, how do I convert that yoni seed to what I, you know, because I'm thinking in my head, okay, I need to get like a body tent and put like a
Well,
little heating plate underneath with a pot, like an old lady pot with all the herbs, and let the
it's
thing just steam.
the most simplest way that you can do at home is to invest in a sitz bath, a medical grade sitz bath, and you can get that like at Amazon, or you can get it at the
Yes.
drugstore. You get that, and you could adhere it to a stool, or you can just clean your toilet bowl and use
Yeah.
that as your seat. Some women, they don't feel comfortable doing that, but the way I see it is, if you keep your bowl clean on a routine
Right.
basis, you're not getting any contact direct from the bowl itself. It's just that you're sitting on the cis basin, and
Right.
you're using the toilet stand as your leverage,
As your
so to
hold,
speak.
right. Yeah.
Correct. So that's probably the easiest and most
Mm-hmm.
effective way to do that if you don't want to kneel down and go in squat position. Which I don't recommend if you have really bad legs, or if your
Yeah.
knees are yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. But invest in the sits basin, and then what you're doing is you're getting a quart of water and you're boiling it in a saucepan. You
Mm-hmm.
throw your herbs in there, you let it steep, and then when it's hot enough, you transfer it to the bowl. And then you just undress from the waist down. And you have some blankets around you, because what you want to do is you want to tent yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want to have enough towels, enough blankets, so that once you sit down, all you have to do is just drape yourself with the towels,
Yep.
blankets, to retain the heat that's between your legs, and then steam for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then pretty much once you're done steaming, you just get up and you can just either flush the herbal mixture, or you can take it outside and dispose of it in nature, however you
Mm-hmm.
want to release it. And that's the most effective way that you can do it at home. It's probably perhaps the most cost effective way, addressing, doing the yoni steaming and getting into a routine practice that you can do easily.
And what about
That
those oils that you also have? I know you have like some
so
essential oils, and what are they
yes.
for?
So there's two formulas that I have. The first one that I created is La Luna, which is a nourishing and healing breast oil that helps to get you into the practice of massaging your breast, because we don't give enough attention to our breasts. We only use them for sexual purposes, or if we have children. And so with this brings back the practice and the connection to our breasts, because our breasts are very important to us too as well. And
I look at
it's
them.
more than just, yeah, I mean, well, it's more than just for decoration. Like you got to show them
You
love.
gotta
And so
you gotta moisturize them, just like you're
yeah, you have
moisturizing
to
everything else.
moisturize them. Yes, absolutely, because you have lymph fluids that are also coursing through your breast as well. So if you don't massage that and allow circulation effectively, you can develop cysts, and those cysts can
Hmm.
possibly, in tandem, if your hormones are irregulated, it could possibly develop into a form of a tumor or cancer,
Interesting.
which is very a very late or an advanced state of illness. But
Right.
you still want to be able to make sure that you're circulating them regularly, so that you can restore the circulation there, the balance of it, and of course, with time, it tones the skin, so your skin looks a lot better. It looks healthier. So that's one. Then the other oil that I just came out with is the yoni oil, and that essentially is used for maintenance. You can use that as a lube as well. It's safe, it's organic, but essentially the yoni oil helps to address any external skin issues that you may be experiencing. Suppose maybe you've done sugar scrubbing or waxing, and you need like a moisture that's dedicated to essentially restore the skin and tone it, but also it helps with the elasticity of the external value of your vaginal canal. So of course you don't want to put this
Oh,
inside or anything like that,
right.
but it does help with the external value of the skin that's there, because it's already sensitive as well. You can't just apply any oil or any lotion, because they're not dead, because certain moisturizers are not dedicated for the yoni itself. There's other stuff that's in it, other ingredients. Where the
Mm-hmm.
yoni oil is more specialized. And so that's why I put stuff in it. I put an adaptogen in it called Shashandra, which is a form of a berry. And essentially, this particular herb, it helps to keep the elasticity of your vaginal canal, and it helps to regulate the hormones itself, the sex hormone, which is estrogen. So it does it
Interesting.
on a very natural, yeah, it does it on a very natural basis as well. And those are the two oils that I offer on the shop at this point.
I may look into all those things. I've
Yeah.
also in the past used those Kegel balls, because now that you're talking
Yes.
about the those oils for your vaginal canal,
Mm-hmm.
um, the Kegel balls, for those that don't know what that is just they're different size balls, right? And
Yes.
what it does is it helps you um, utilize your vaginal canal muscles, right? Because
Correct.
some of us,
Yes.
it's like a muscle in your body, and you're out, the muscle that you don't think about it's that muscle, right? Because you don't normally
Yes.
work it out unless you're possibly having sex. And even during sex, some of us don't utilize it. They don't even know how to utilize it, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
It helps when you're in your childbearing stages too, right? And so it's
It does.
important to keep them healthy and keep them contracting and keep them good, just like every other muscle in your body. Because to be honest with you, the older we get, the more muscle we start to lose. So we have to work our body out. And so working
Yes.
your vaginal canal muscles is important. So using those Kegel balls
Mm-hmm.
helps. Now, I know that you
Yes.
also offer those, what do you call it? The yoni egg or whatever
The
the
yoni
case may be.
eggs.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
had, I didn't have a yoni egg. I had Kegel balls.
Yes.
And like I said, they come in different sizes depending on how strong your muscle is and what your purpose is. So I had like two little, I'm going to tell you a little story. So I was a realtor at some time in my life, and I decided I was gonna put these Kegel balls in, and then I get a call, and they were like, "Hey, can you show me the house?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, forget it, I'll go." Right, not a big deal. I forget I got these
Yeah.
things inside me, right? And what people
Oh my
don't
gosh.
realize is that any little push or any little movement starts moving these balls, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't recall what I had on, but I tell you that when I got out the car, one was on its way out, and I was just like, oh, holy
Shook.
hell. I was like, this thing is going to, I think I had a dress on. I think that's probably why. I was just like, oh, holy hell, this thing is going to fall out, drop in the middle of the street, and people are going to be like, what the fuck is that?
It's all rolling.
So I get to the door, and I'm like, all tight, trying to open up the door. And I'm like, make your way around. I have to run to the ladies' room for a quick second. And
Oh
I had
my
to go in
gosh,
there. I
that's
had
so
to figure
funny.
this thing out, right? But
Yeah.
it goes to show you that the more you utilize it, the more your muscles will tighten and the more you're able to control it. So obviously I was
Yes.
not that great at it, right? Plus I had them a little small. So it was
Yeah.
more challenging. But tell us about your egg, because I don't know what size it is, but it looks big enough.
The yoni eggs at the store, and I don't have the Kegel balls or anything like that. It's something that I'm looking into adding eventually.
Hmm.
But the purpose of the yoni egg is essentially they're natural crystals in the shape of
Hmm.
an egg, and you can insert this into your vaginal canal. This is very helpful to help with Kegel exercising. So it keeps your muscles tight, your pelvic basin muscles, and it also it helps in the grand scheme of things, especially when you're sexually active, that it keeps you more bodied aware of the muscle power that you have with regards
Right.
to gripping and the whole action and stuff like that. So also it helps to retain the bladder wall too, because as you
Yes.
age, the bladder wall starts to get
It
not
starts to
deteriorate,
sag.
but it weakens. Yeah, it
Yeah.
starts to weaken. So you can't hold your urine like you used
Yep.
to. So yeah,
It
so
does
so it
help a
helps with
lot.
that. Yes. Um, it also has spiritual practices as well, as far as the crystals, because each crystal has its own designated energy. So rose quartz resonates with love, peace,
Hmm.
feelings of unconditional love. Amethyst resonates with wisdom and utilizing the crown chakra
Hmm.
to tap it into your intuition, your women's intuition. And then I also have the black obsidian, which is a great toxic releaser, I like to call it, because what it does is it transmute every negative issue that you may have
I
experienced
think
in
we
your
all need
womb.
that.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. In fact, it was one of the first practices that I used after being in a very narcissistic relationship. This is a
Oh
legit
boy.
narcissist, yeah. And it was the first thing that I did, especially because I was sexually active. And I knew that I was carrying energy in my womb that wasn't going to be great in the long term stretch of
Hmm.
things. And so so I used the black obsidian and I meditated, I inserted, and I left it there for a good 24 hours, I want to say, until my body was
Wow.
ready to release it. Yeah. And then I released it, and then I followed it up with a rose quartz, because now I'm replacing
Yes.
it with
With
unconditional
love.
love for myself.
Yes.
Yes. And that was extremely helpful to help me cut off those toxic cords as it relates to my as it relates to energy.
Yes.
And it was extremely helpful, because then after that I started to attract all these good things into my life. It was crazy. All these different blessings. It was beautiful. And so I highly recommend utilizing that practice as well.
Interesting. I will look into that, because I do believe in that. I think that we are all we're all these energies that we pick up, and some of them are not good
Yes.
energies, and some of them we have to let go. We have to purge. And
Yes.
I'm a big believer in God and the power that he has. And so not only in prayer, I also like to incorporate those little things, because I think that it helps as we're going through our purging process for whatever it is that we're going through.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so important.
Yes.
So important.
Well, Jasmine, it's been good speaking to you. This has been great.
Thank you.
This is my first live
Congratulations.
not live, but live with a guest.
Yes.
I'm hoping that it's not my last. It will be a while, I will tell you, because I have a very busy schedule, and I don't want to bore the people on my site. But I just want you to know that by no means am I a professional in any of these topics that I'm talking about. That's why I do bring people with knowledge, background knowledge like you. And I appreciate the time that you've taken out to discuss, the big topics that I feel like it's not being talked about enough,
Right.
And I'm hoping that we can continue this conversation going forward with other things.
For sure. Yes, I'm totally open to it. You just let me know.
All right, girl. Well, it was nice talking to you, and it's nice for those of the people that came on. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.